The first sign that something was wrong didn't come from Eliza herself, but from Abby. It was a chilly Friday evening in October when 15-year-old Eliza Monroe found herself alone in her family's two-story house just outside of town. Her parents had driven upstate to visit a sick relative and wouldn't be back until Sunday night. Eliza didn't mind. In fact, she loved the solitude. She was mature for her age, responsible, calm, never one to sneak friends over or throw wild parties. And besides, she wasn't entirely alone. Abby, the family's loyal Labrador, was staying with her. The house was silent except for the soft hum of the refrigerator and the rhythmic ticking of the old hallway clock. Outside, the wind dragged dry autumn leaves across the driveway, like whispers on pavement. By 9:45 p.m., Eliza was curled up on the living room couch, wrapped in her favorite gray blanket, watching an old VHS tape of the Blair Witch Project. Abby was lying nearby, belly rising and falling, calm and content. Then suddenly, Abby's head snapped up. Eliza lowered the volume. "Abby?" The dog's ears twitched. She stood up slowly and began walking toward the hallway. Eliza followed her with her eyes. Abby stopped in front of the basement door. A soft knock echoed from behind it. Eliza froze. "No way," she whispered, staring at the door. She turned the TV off. The silence in the house suddenly felt oppressive. Every second stretched longer than it should. The knock came again. Just a soft tap, like fabric brushing wood. Then the doorknob jiggled. Once, then again harder. Abby growled. A deep, primal sound Eliza had rarely heard before. Eliza stood slowly and crept toward the hallway. "Maybe wind pressure?" she whispered to herself. But Abby remained stiff, hackles raised, tail straight. The doorknob rattled again. This time, Eliza's instincts screamed, "That's not the wind." She rushed to check the front door. The side door, also locked. Windows? Shut. Alarm? Then came the sound she'd never forget. The basement door shifted, just slightly. Opened an inch, as if someone on the other side had unlocked it from within. Abby lunged at the door, barking violently. The door slammed shut with a loud bang. Eliza shrieked, stumbled backward, and fumbled for her phone. Her hands trembled as she dialed 911. 911, what's your emergency? There's someone in my house. They're at the basement door. It just opened by itself. My dog is going crazy. The dispatcher was calm, collected. Stay on the line, Eliza. We've dispatched officers. They'll be there in 10 minutes. Can you go to a safe room and lock the door? 10 minutes. She ran upstairs to her bedroom, locked the door, and turned on every light. Abby stayed beside her, tense. Eliza grabbed her older brother's baseball bat and held her phone like a lifeline. Then came the silence. But it wasn't empty. She could hear something. Something low. Breathing. Not heavy or fast. But it was there. She pressed her ear to the floor. Inhale. Exhale. Just beneath her. When flashing lights finally appeared through her window, she burst into tears. The police searched the entire house. Room by room. They opened every door, checked under beds, even scanned the basement. But they found no one. No signs of forced entry. Nothing missing. Not even a fingerprint. Are you sure you didn't leave the basement door unlocked? One officer asked gently. Eliza wanted to scream. She knew what she'd heard, what she saw. But the words caught in her throat. Abby, however, refused to go near the basement door again. The next morning, the world tried to pretend everything was normal. Sunlight streamed through the curtains. Birds chirped outside. Eliza's phone buzzed with a reminder to finish her math homework. But nothing was normal. Abby still wouldn't leave Eliza's side. Every time a floorboard creaked, Eliza flinched. The police had left around 1:30 a.m. They said there was nothing else they could do. But Eliza knew. Something had been in that basement. By noon, the doorbell rang. Eliza wasn't expecting anyone. She peeked through the peephole. A tall man stood on the porch. Thinning gray hair, tired eyes, a familiar awkward smile. It was Uncle Pete, her dad's estranged half-brother. She hadn't seen him in almost a year. Her parents barely spoke of him, only vague mentions about alcohol, boundaries, and trouble. "Hey, sweetie," he said with a casual wave. "Just stopping by. Left this last night for your folks, figured I'd check if you saw it." He held up a white envelope. "You were here last night?" Eliza asked cautiously. "Yeah, but didn't want to wake anyone. Just dropped it by the side door near the basement." The blood drained from her face. "That door? The same one Abby growled at." He smiled, uneven teeth showing. "Just a little thank you note. For what your parents did last year. I haven't forgotten." Eliza swallowed hard. "They're not home." "Oh, I know," he said softly. A chill ran down her spine. Then he chuckled. "I mean, your mom told me they were out of town when I called yesterday. That's all." She forced a smile. "Thanks. I'll give this to them." He nodded. "Take care now. You're growing up fast." He walked off, whistling. As soon as he was out of sight, Eliza slammed the door shut and locked it. Then opened the envelope. Inside was a single piece of lined paper, scrawled in messy handwriting. "We're all just one door away." Eliza sat frozen on the couch, staring at the note. "We're all just one door away." Her fingers trembled as she read it again and again, trying to understand. Was it a threat? A warning? A joke? It wasn't a joke. She didn't sleep that night. Every light in the house stayed on. She clutched Abby close, wrapped in her blanket on the living room floor. Her heart jumped at every sound, the wind brushing the windows, the creak of the old pipes, even the ticking of the hallway clock felt too loud. She texted her parents again, asking them to come back early. No reply. Maybe they were still at the hospital with her uncle. Maybe they didn't have service. Maybe. At 2:04 a.m., the porch light flickered. Eliza sat up straight. Abby growled again. A low, warning rumble. The light flickered twice and went out. Then came the sound she feared most. The basement doorknob turned. Abby barked, loud and furious. Eliza gasped and scrambled to check the alarm system. Still armed. Green light steady. All doors locked. Windows shut. But the knob twisted again. Slow. Deliberate. She could see a shadow under the door. Not feet. Knees. Whoever was there was crouching. Eliza grabbed her phone and dialed 911, fingers fumbling on the screen. "There's someone in my house," she whispered. Again. At the basement door. "Stay calm," the dispatcher said. "Units are on their way." But Eliza didn't feel calm. She didn't feel safe. She didn't feel alone. She didn't go upstairs this time. She went to the kitchen, opened the drawer, and took the biggest knife she could find. Abby stood like a soldier beside her, ears up, legs braced, ready to lunge. The sound echoed again, dragging. Not walking. Not footsteps. Sliding. Like someone crawling. Or pulling something across the floor. Eliza moved to the front window and carefully peeked through the curtain. A car was parked out front. She didn't recognize it. The license plate was crooked, almost hanging off. She stepped back, heart racing. "Please hurry," she whispered into the phone. "He's still here." He came back. The dispatcher reassured her, but it all blurred. Her mind was focused on one thing: survive. 10 minutes later, flashing red and blue lights filled the street again. She ran to the door and flung it open as the officers approached. They searched the house, top to bottom. And again, they found nothing. No forced entry. No broken windows. No one in the basement. No one outside. No footprints. No fingerprints. But this time, she showed them the note. One officer read it, his jaw tightening. They took it seriously now. A patrol car remained outside for the rest of the night, engine running, lights off. Silent. But Eliza still couldn't sleep. The moment the officers left, she sat in the hallway with her back to the basement door, knife beside her, Abby curled by her feet. Her eyes stayed open till dawn. The next day, her parents came home. Eliza flew into her mother's arms the second she stepped through the door. Her voice cracked as she poured everything out. Uncle Pete, the knocks, the movement, the shadow, the note, the car. Her father's face paled the moment she said Pete's name. "I thought he was still in rehab," he muttered. "He was supposed to be 2 states away. How the hell did he—" He stopped mid-sentence. Her mother's hand went to her mouth. "I don't know what he wants," Eliza whispered. "But he was here." Her dad didn't speak. He just stood, staring at the basement door. That night he nailed it shut. Not just locked. Heavy wooden planks. Thick iron nails. He hammered each one with shaking hands. The locks on the other doors were replaced. The alarm system was upgraded. Motion sensor lights were installed outside. Cameras too. But none of it helped Eliza sleep. Not really. She still felt him. Even when everything was quiet. Even when the dog was calm. Even when the sun was shining through the windows. She felt him. 1 week later, it rained. Eliza came home early from school. The sky was gray, and wind slammed sheets of rain sideways across the front yard. She opened the door, dripping wet, and was instantly greeted by Abby. The dog's tail wagged, but only for a second. Then she froze. Ears up. Eyes locked toward the hallway. Eliza's stomach dropped. She turned her head slowly. The basement door, still boarded shut, was perfectly still. But Abby growled. "No," Eliza whispered. "No, no, no." She walked to the alarm panel. Still armed. No alerts. She tried to call her dad. No signal. She opened a browser. No Wi-Fi. The storm had knocked it out. She paced the living room, heart hammering, eyes darting to every dark corner. Then she heard it. Not from the basement door. From the floor. Directly beneath her. Thump, thump, frit. Eliza stood frozen, skin crawling. The sound was under her. In the crawl space. Her dad had mentioned it once. A narrow access area under the house, reachable through the pantry closet. Just big enough for plumbing and wiring. She had never seen it herself. Until now. Abby moved like a statue, slowly turning to face the pantry. Eliza followed, each step slower than the last. The pantry door creaked open. Light flickered. In the back corner, the wall looked different. She moved in closer, and that's when she saw it. A faint handprint. Muddy. Faded. Half-wiped. On the drywall. Near a crooked wooden panel. Her breath caught. Every part of her brain screamed not to touch it. But her hand moved anyway. She pulled the panel away. Cold, damp air hit her face, thick with mold and something else, sweat and soil. She clicked on her flashlight and aimed it into the darkness. Movement. A shift in the far corner. Her breath hitched. She aimed the beam directly at it. And there, in the shadows, a nest. Blankets. Candy wrappers. Empty water bottles. Torn newspaper. A phone cracked and dead. And a photo of her family. Fresh. Torn in half. Taped together. Her face was scratched out. Eliza stepped back. Her scream caught in her throat. And then she saw him. Uncle Pete. Curled in the shadows like a feral animal. Thin. Eyes glinting like glass. She grinned. And he lunged. Eliza's scream never made it past her lips. Uncle Pete lunged from the shadows of the crawlspace, his body moving in a sickening, unnatural way, twisted like he had forgotten how to walk upright. His fingernails were black, his hair greasy and wild, his eyes wide with madness and something worse, satisfaction. Eliza slammed the crawlspace panel shut just in time. Bang. He rammed against it from the inside, shrieking. Words spilled from his mouth, jumbled and slurred. Abby barked furiously, jumping at the pantry door, her hackles raised and tail stiff. Eliza grabbed the pantry chair and shoved it against the panel. Her whole body shook. She couldn't think, couldn't breathe. Her phone. She ran toward the coffee table, but there was no signal. Just a red X where the bars used to be. Thunder cracked outside. Rain slammed against the windows. She didn't stop to think. She sprinted out the front door barefoot, across the wet grass, through the downpour, straight to the neighbor's house. Her fists pounded the door. "Help! Help me, please!" Lights flicked on. A man opened the door in a robe, startled. "There's someone in our crawl space," she sobbed. "He's inside the house. Please call the police." They did. Within minutes, the sound of sirens filled the stormy night. Blue and red lights danced across the flooded street as cruisers pulled up outside. This time, the police didn't just search. They tore through the pantry. Officers pried open the crawlspace entrance and flooded it with flashlights. And there he was, curled like a wounded animal, rocking back and forth, clothes filthy, skin pale and stretched. He didn't resist. He didn't scream. He just stared blankly at the flashlight beams, muttering the same phrase over and over. "You left the door open? You left the door open?" Eliza stood behind the officers, drenched and shaking, watching as they dragged him out of the hole beneath her house. Her hands clutched Abby's collar so tight her knuckles went white. She would never forget his eyes. Not for the rest of her life. 6 months later, Eliza no longer lived on Cedar Street. Her family sold the house, moved across the state to a new town, a new school, a new life. The crawlspace had been sealed with concrete. Uncle Pete had been committed to a psychiatric facility. The doctors said he'd likely been off his medication for well over a year. But that didn't explain how he survived. They found a makeshift den in the crawlspace. Blankets, flashlight, empty food wrappers, torn photos of the Monroe family, and receipts, candy, canned food, batteries, all purchased with crumpled bills. He had been living there for weeks, maybe months, watching, listening, sneaking through the side door during the day when no one was home. He had a spare key, copied from the original years ago when he still visited family for Christmas. Somehow, he'd made duplicates. Quietly, secretly. At night, he would crawl through the basement, sometimes even up into the hallway, and just listen. Sometimes he took food, other times, nothing. But always, he was near. The scariest part? They had walked over him, slept, watched TV, and he had been just inches beneath their feet. Eliza doesn't sleep easily anymore. Even in the new house, with deadbolts, cameras, motion lights, and reinforced doors, she checks everything twice. Under the bed, inside the closet, behind the shower curtain, and the floorboards. Always the floorboards. Abby still sleeps beside her every night. She doesn't bark anymore, but she watches. And that's enough. The nightmares come often. Sometimes it's Pete's face through a vent. Sometimes it's the sound of a creaking panel in the dark. Sometimes it's just breathing right next to her ear. In the quietest moments, she still hears it. Thump, thump, frit. One evening, after a long day at her new school, Eliza was helping her mom unpack the last few boxes in the garage. Her mom handed her an old photo album. "Here," she said softly. "This got water damaged in the move. Just see if anything's worth saving." Eliza flipped through the pages, fingers pausing on one photo in particular. It was a Christmas picture. Her parents, and Uncle Pete. He was standing behind them, not smiling, just staring at the camera, hand on Eliza's shoulder. She hadn't noticed that before. She quietly removed the photo, folded it in half, and threw it into the trash can. She didn't tell her mom, didn't explain why. Some things didn't need retelling. Some things you just seal shut and leave behind. But even now, when she lies in bed and the wind brushes the windows, even when Abby is asleep and the house is dead silent, she listens, just in case, because she knows now. Sometimes monsters don't live in forests or haunted houses. They live just beneath your feet.